A new arc has begun in Amphibia, the show, not the place, because we're not technically in the place anymore most of the time. But you know what I mean. Well, one of this week's 2 episodes was just a character building filler episode. It's not really filler, because we learned stuff about the characters, but you get what I mean. The other one was clearly the start of a new arc, anime style, just like the previous episode was the end of an arc, anime style. In this episode, Mr. X, we're introduced to the new arc villain, as well as his partner, and while I wasn't entirely thrilled with the fact that his partner is a female character who literally doesn't have a voice, I got over that pretty quick when I realized what they were going for here. She still communicates, she just communicates by sending him messages in text form. And also, I kind of realized that they were sort of going for a parody of Mulder and Scully from the X-Files. You have the more outspoken male character, outspoken to the point where you could almost call him flamboyant. Mulder was a little flamboyant sometimes. And then the more stoic female character, they just crank both of those things up to 11, and Mr. X is super duper flamboyant. Vice versa. Like, the dude rolls into a building at one point on I would assume custom made dress shoe Heelys, which might be one of the best character details I've ever seen. Because it says so much about the character, about the fact that he genuinely enjoys all of this, while also being a fantastic visual gag. Heelys are essentially a meme in and of themselves at this point. And while he does come to town looking for the planters, thinking them to be hostile aliens that need to be dealt with and dissected and examined and learned about, I don't get the sense that that's because he's a bad person. I could be wrong. I could be reading the character wrong, because he doesn't come across as traditionally, like, villainous, right? And that's probably part of the reason why I'm not reading the character correctly, if I'm, in fact, not reading the character correctly. But it really does feel like he just thinks that aliens are inherently dangerous, and that that's a thing that he's going to have to unlearn as this arc continues. Because I could definitely see a character this unique and interesting becoming an ally to our heroes. But either way, he clearly enjoys his work, and that makes him enjoyable to watch. Meanwhile, though, Anne's parents are kind of hyped to get into dangerous situations again because they thought it was exciting. Mr. Boonchoi even gets a scene where he beats my pull-up record, which, I get. I think if I successfully helped repel an attack by an extra-dimensional alien killer robot, I'd be pretty excited too, right? But Anne is, of course, worried that they're taking this too far, that they're going to be reckless, and therefore does everything she can to avoid them getting into another dangerous situation. So, when Mr. X ends up trapping her and the planters in a movie theater, even though her parents know that he's after them because of a coincidence where he happened... Bless you, Rupert. You done? Where he happened to get an update about Anne's location while in her parents' restaurant ordering food, and they swear up and down they can help get them out of the theater. Anne tries not to let them. Thankfully, they don't listen to her, though, because they do bring certain skills to the party that they're able to use to get her and the planters out safely, and even kind of half discredit X in the same time. Which was a nice touch. Like, they're smart characters. Like, I already liked these characters, but seeing how well they fit into a dangerous situation like this made me like them even more. But that's all the episode was, really, was just an introduction to these new villains and to this new status quo for this next arc. We did get a little bit, while in the theater, of maybe Sprig being, like, sensitive to certain sensory inputs, because he really didn't react well to the movie. And I don't know if that's going to come into play later, or if it was just like a character thing they thought would be amusing. But it's there, and I guess noteworthy, right? It is interesting, though, that he can't handle big, exciting action movies, but he's so good in an actual real-life crisis situation. Forgot the word crisis for a second there. Not going to cut that one out either, because that one's funny. I think, anyway. I think weird things are funny, though. But yeah, all around, it was just a good episode. Like, let me put it this way. The involvement of Anne's parents in this, like the specific sequence of events that they do to get her out, is interesting enough that I don't want to go into detail about it because I think it's worth watching, you know? I also just want to point out, and I'm not tooting my own horn here, at least not exclusively, I promise. I just think it's worth pointing out. Some people still question whether or not this show is modeling itself after, like, traditional martial arts shonen style anime. But, like, Matt Braley's been drawing a lot of art for each of these new episodes and posted on Twitter. That's what I've been using for my covers of these last several episodes. His art for this last one is literally art of, I'm assuming it's Frieza and one of the Ginyus, or Frieza and like a Zarbon maybe, but like X and his like, what was her name? I just realized I don't remember her name. His partner, I'll remember it eventually. Instead, in their places, like from early, it has to be Zarbon then, or Dodoria, because it looks like it's from early in the Namek saga. Sorry, I'm going off on a tangent. Then I'll put it up here again. I would have put it up at the beginning. I'll put it up here again. Like from the beginning of one of these arcs, directly comparing this episode to the start of an anime arc. So I mean, I was right. You know, just wanted to point that out. The second episode, Sprig's birthday, though, as much as I liked Mr. X, I think is the stronger episode, at least for me. Like, it's always fun to be introduced to a new villain, but, like, as interesting as he was, and as interesting as they made him in his debut, even though he didn't come into direct conflict with our heroes yet, I do expect he's going to do more interesting stuff later. Like, not, like, quantifiably more. Like, he's going to do stuff that's more interesting. You get what I'm saying. So it was fun to see the genesis of that, but it really got me more excited for stuff to come than for stuff in the episode. But Sprig's birthday was genuinely a fun episode. And, like, the show has never done a bad job of selling the fact that Anne and Sprig are really good friends, but it's been a while since we've had just an episode of them palling around, and Anne trying to be the best friend to him that she can be, or vice versa, this episode being the former. She finds out that it's Sprig's 11th birthday, and that on Amphibia, or in Amphibia, doesn't matter, really they just use birthdays as a chance to contemplate their lives for as long as they feel like they need to. They don't really have a big celebration. So she says, you know, I'm going to introduce you to my culture, Earth culture, and she throws him multiple, like, birthday bash type scenarios, trying to make this his best birthday ever. And he says it's his third best before the final big scenario that I'm going to talk about in a minute. And already I knew that we were going to find out why it's only third best, and that it was going to be something super touching. And it was, but I'll get to that in a minute. Just Sprig is such a wholesome character. I love him a lot. But she decides she's going to take him on a hot air balloon ride. And it's one of the funniest things I've ever seen, because it's a clown-themed hot air balloon run by a clown who was an amusing character in and of himself. But then they aren't actually able to go on the balloon ride because of weather, so they just stand in the balloon, and Anne does the stupid thing of taking it up in the air a little bit, because the guy's off doing his own thing because they're not flying, right? They don't need him for this. He's an idiot. And he does say he's going to get fired in the end. And frankly, he probably should be. But their tether breaks, and they end up flying through the city. And it's so funny. It's such a funny... Like, it's not a chase scene. It's how would I describe it? It feels... How would I even describe it? It feels like a chase scene, in that they're rushing through the city trying to avoid things. It's more like a plane crash scene. Like a plane is crashing into the city and they're having to swerve to avoid things, you know? And between the fact that this clown balloon is the most terrifying thing ever, like, it's up there with the, what was it, I Eat Kids or whatever balloon, that one from Gravity Falls. I'll put a picture right up here if I remember to do so. It was pretty freaking scary. And while this is happening, I'm not going to go into detail about this, like specific detail, because you need to watch this episode for this sequence alone. As this is happening, it continues to pass by all of these super interesting background characters who all have their own thing going on. Like, this show has the best minor and background characters I've ever seen in anything, except for maybe something like Gravity Falls. It's just absolutely hilarious, and while they do survive, it's pretty harrowing for a while. And then we get this super touching scene that makes you realize that Sprig, by calling it his third favorite birthday, really was being fully appreciative of everything that Anne did, and she probably did take things too far. He says his number 1 birthday is the day he was born, and his number 2 birthday is the last birthday he remembers with his parents, where they gave him the hat that he always wears, which I thought was a cool detail. And like, yeah, of course those are going to be his top 2, which means that of the ones that aren't default top of the list, this is his favorite. And like, first of all, it's very cute that he's sentimental enough that he holds on to the memory of his parents with such fondness. But it's also super cute that he loves Anne so much too, right? It's a fantastic, ultra wholesome episode, and reminds us a little bit that Anne and Sprig are troublemakers. They're not perfect characters. They do this silly, reckless thing. And, well, they probably shouldn't do that. They should probably grow past the point that they do that. They are still both pretty young. It makes sense, and it made for an amusing episode nonetheless. I also kind of get the sense that the fact that this was Sprig's birthday, that he is now confirmed older than he was, right? Like, we could even kind of pinpoint, like, I don't know if we know specifically how long it's been since Anne got back now, but we can kind of pinpoint specifically how old he was roughly when she showed up too, which is cool. I always like the ability to form timeline stuff in a lore-heavy show, right? But I did kind of get the sense that even though it didn't seem like anything in this episode is going to specifically contribute to anything later, except maybe that vague memory of his parents will come back at some point, the fact that we focused on him here is sort of prepping us for the fact that we're going to be focusing on his character more as we go along. Because I've always talked about the fact that Anne and Sprig are really co-protagonists of this show. Anne is the fish out of water, and Sprig is the character who lives here. And especially early on, things actually seem to be framed from his perspective more than anyone else's. And yet it was Anne who really grew and learned and changed throughout her time in Amphibia. It would make sense if then we start to see Sprig grow and learn and change, starting from primarily Anne's perspective. Either way, though, these were both great episodes. I enjoyed them a lot. This show really doesn't have many misses. It's really kind of nuts. It's just a very good show. I wish more people watched it. That said, though, in their own unique ways, these both felt like they were setting up as much as they were trying to entertain us in the moment, so I don't really have much more to say about them, at least not yet. So as per usual, I'd like to know what do you guys think of the episodes Mr. X and Sprig's Birthday. If you have seen them, let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below. And while you're down there, you might as well like the video, share it with anyone else you think would enjoy my content, subscribe if you haven't. You can also check out links to my various social medias, as well as the many ways you can help out the channel. Those will be in the video description. But either way, this has been AJ22, and I will talk to you guys later.